My name is Bryan Hiveley. I'm one of the professors here at Miami International University of Art and Design. And we're here in one of the visual arts classrooms where I'm going to be working on a project with the Bezel Effect, where we take a pattern and we're going to change that pattern by just changing the colors in the pattern. The Bezel Effect is an optical illusion. When you place a color next to another color, depending on that color's value or saturation, it's going to make the color perceived differently to the human eye. All right, so now I have managed to download a few images from the internet. Make sure they're large-scale images when you select yours, because as we shrink things down in Photoshop, it can be a little bit tricky if we want to scale them back up. So what you're seeing here now is just this image of this rhino that I selected. Because we're not going to be using any gradients or any transparencies, we're only going to be relying on the outside image to tell us what that image is. So make sure you pick something that has a very clear silhouette. I also selected my color wheel here. We're going to be using a double split complement color scheme. So when we are ready to start, just pick whatever your favorite color is. That's going to be your base color. And then we're going to pick its complement. So you're going to draw across, so blue-green, and the complement will be orange-red. And then we need to pick one of the colors on the side of it, either the green or the blue. I'll go with the green and across to the red. So our double split complement color scheme is going to be the green, the blue-green, the red-orange, and the red. I'm going to go ahead and hold down Shift, select the layer below, and I'm going to merge this layer that I just drew those lines on to that color wheel. So I do a Command E, and now that is going to be what we're going to use as our reference. So I'll turn it off right now, and I just need to know that my first color is going to be the red, and then my secondary color will be the blue-green. It's important that you memorize a few of the hotkeys in Photoshop. It'll make the process of creating your project a lot easier. So now we have our rhino. We do need to have him removed from this background of white around him. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to my quick selection tool. And the quick selection tool is located 4 down on the toolbar here. And once I have the quick selection tool selected, it's going to allow me to select subject here. This is a relatively new feature to Photoshop. If I click that, then on the select subject, Photoshop will figure out exactly where the subject is, and you're going to see it selected in the marching ants. That is an active selection, and when we tell Photoshop to do anything going forward, it's only going to do it within those parameters. Now I want to duplicate that layer. I'm going to do a Command J. Normally that would duplicate the layer completely, but because it's got the active selection, it is now only the rhino. I can throw away my original, and the new rhino is got no background on it. Now I'm going to go ahead and make him an active selection again by holding down Command on the keyboard. I'm going to go to that rhino, get those marching ants again. I'm going to go to the half circle, and I'm going to go to the black and white. Now the reason we're going to make this black and white before we do the color overlays is because we don't want any of that original colors to come show through. I'm going to hold down Shift, select both layers, do a Command E. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my solid color overlay. I hold down Command on the keyboard, select the rhino, and I am going to go to the half circle, which is my adjustment layer. I'm going to go to my solid color, and I'll start with that first color, which we said was red. So I do need to merge this onto my rhino layer. I'm going to hold down Shift, select both layers, and do a Command E. So now I'm going to shrink my rhino to about 25% of the original size. Shrink him down. There we go. And hit Return. So next I will make a blank layer. I'm going to go to my elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to make a circle big enough to put that rhino in. Now on that blank layer, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to double click and go to my blue-green, which was my secondary color I said that we were using. I will go to my paint bucket tool. Because this is an active selection, it's only going to allow me to paint in there. I just click and it'll fill in that area. Now that I've got the paint in there, I don't want it selected anymore. I do a Command D to deselect, and I will bring the rhino above. I will take the move tool and move the rhino over the top. Now let's go ahead and select both. Now when you want to select both, if you have the move tool selected, if you move across it, it's going to form a box, and anything in that box is going to be selected over here. Then if I do a Command E, it's merged onto one layer. Now I need to know my next 2 colors. So my next 2 colors are going to be the green and the red-orange. Those are the 2 we have not used yet. So I'm going to make the background of this the red-orange, and it's going to have a red-orange border around it. So all I'm going to do is go to the FX layer. I'm going to go to the stroke, And right now it's selected as green. I'll just go in here and change it to red-orange. That's pretty good. And if I want to make this a little bit bigger, I can just pull this out. And it's selected on. Now I do want to merge these effects onto the layer. I'm going to make a blank layer. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to select both layers, do a Command E, and now if I scale this, it's not going to have any problems. So now I'm going to start with my pattern. So I'm going to use this image to create multiple images by using the Move tool, hold down Option, click and drag. And let me make a smaller one here in the middle. Just use the Transform tool by doing Command T. Shrink it down, and hit return. Now I will select all these again. I'm going to hold down Option. I'm going to click and drag. And I will go ahead and move in 2 more little ones. Whoops. Let me do that one more time. And I will go ahead and line it up. All right, so now when I want to select them all, I just, again, use the Move tool, slide across the screen. Anything in that square is going to be selected. You can see all the layers are selected now. Now I do a Command E. And now it's time to shrink down my canvas because it's a little big. I'll use the Crop tool, which is located the 5th one down. And I'll just shrink this down just a little bit. Just hit return, and it'll crop your project. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a blank layer. I'm going to drop to the bottom. Last color in my color scheme, which is going to be the green. And now I'll go to my blank layer. I don't need my color scheme anymore. I'll throw that out. And then I'm going to go to the rectangle marquee tool, and let me go here to my swatches, double click, change that to the green that I'm looking for, hit OK. The rectangle marquee tool, I'm going to slide down and make my stripe. And I'm going to go ahead and use the paint bucket tool to drop in the color. Now I'm going to go back to the Move tool. I'm going to hold down Option, click and drag. I'm going to click and drag, and just click or drag across, and I'm going to make stripes in this background. And I will just keep clicking and dragging this stripe across. And remember, your pattern can be however you want it. This is just the one I'm just using for the demo, but you can get as complex as you want with these designs. Add a little more green over here just to... All right. Now this is going to be my pattern. I'm ready to go. Hold down Shift, select both layers, do a Command E. Now I'm going to need to shrink this down. So I'm going to use the Command minus on the keyboard to shrink this down because I want to double the size of my artboard. I'm going to go to the Crop tool, and I'm just going to select it and move it to about double the size. There we go. And hit return. Now that we have the pattern created, we're going to use the paint bucket tool to change the perception of the colors by changing the colors within the pattern. So now I'm going to make a blank layer. I'm going to drop it to the bottom. I need to fill in that bottom color. So it needs to be one of the colors from my design. So I'll just double click on my color picker. I'm going to go ahead and select one of those colors. I'll go with the blue-green for right now. And because I'm on that blank layer, I go to the paint bucket tool, and then I drop in that color. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift, select both layers, do a Command E. I'm going to merge these together so that we can go ahead and crop this one more time, but we're going to do a reverse crop. We're going to make it about twice the size of our artboard. I'm going to bring that just up a little on the bottom and maybe just down a little bit and hit return. And then I'll go to the Move tool. I'm going to hold down Option, click and drag. And then I will use the Crop tool one more time just to come in here from the edge now that we know how big it's going to be, and line it up with that green, hit return. All right, so now we're ready to try changing these colors to change the perception of how our pattern is going to look. So this project being inspired by the Bezel Effect, it's going to depend on what colors are next to each other, how we are going to view them. So I'm going to go back to my eyedropper tool. I do need to pick one of the colors that are already in the pattern. I'll go with the red. And then I'm going to go to the paint bucket tool, and I can change one of the colors in this pattern, but it needs to be one that's repeated twice. So either I could go on the interior here, but then we'd lose the rhino, or I can go with the stripe. So let me go ahead and fill in the stripes here. As you can see, I can start to make the pattern look completely different. It just takes a minute to go through here. Now what you're seeing is the pattern starts to change. So here, the red and the orange move forward. On this side, because of the relationship of our colors, we're seeing the blue-green come forward in the image. So just by changing around the relationship of the colors, you can change the pattern. All right, now that you're done, the most important thing you should be doing is practicing on these projects, because the more you practice, the better you're going to become with the software. Thank you for joining me today here in the ceramics room, and I hope I see you soon at Miami International University of Art and Design.